The Washington Redskins travel to Minnesota to face the Vikings on Thursday Night Football. BETDAQ currently has Washington installed as a 1-point favorite. 49.5 is the total. The Redskins have won 2 out of their last 3 games. They now sit at 3-5, just a game back in the loss column of first in the NFC East. Remember, the Cowboys at 5-4 lead the division, but they haven't had their bye yet, so they played one more game than Washington. So technically the Redskins are a game and a half back at first, but again, only a game back in the loss column. So everything's still out in front of them this season, despite their slow start. Same can't be said for Minnesota. The wheels have come off in Minnesota. Vikings at 1-7. All hope is lost. But they're still playing hard for Leslie Frazier. They played well on the road in Dallas last week and nearly beat the Cowboys. Now, there's not much faith in Minnesota from the betting public this week. Washington, a very popular public bet here. We mentioned the line is 1 on BETDAQ. That line now sitting at 2.5 throughout Las Vegas and at many sports books around the world. And the price to back Washington reflects that. To back Washington at -1 on BETDAQ, currently at 1.8. And conversely, you can get a little bit better than even money backing Minnesota at +1. It's understandable, I guess. As we said, the Redskins have won 2 out of 3. Minnesota 1-7 on the year. I think a lot of people think that Washington seems to be getting it together now, preparing for a stretch run. I'm not sure that's a correct read on the situation. And I wasn't surprised that the Redskins were able to beat the San Diego Chargers last week. We correctly picked that here on BETDAQ, one of the few we got right last week. But I don't think the Redskins are at all a good team, not at all a team to be trusted, especially on the road. They do have one road win this season against Oakland, but their other road games have been lopsided losses. They are really, really bad on defense. The Redskins, 30th in yards allowed, 31st in points allowed. Only the Jacksonville Jaguars allow more points than the Washington Redskins. They're allowing nearly 400 yards and 32 points per game. And the Minnesota Vikings, even though, again, 1-7, they've quietly been improving on offense over the last couple of weeks. They topped 30 points 2 weeks ago against the Green Bay Packers. And last week in Dallas, Adrian Peterson seemed to return to form. 140 rushing yards, seemed to be running with that determination that he's been known for throughout his career that he maybe was lacking early this season. We don't know if it was undisclosed injuries or maybe the tragic death of his 2-year-old son, but Peterson hadn't been himself this season. He looked a little more like himself last Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. Washington, 22nd in the NFL in rushing defense. So they could have a big problem slowing down Adrian Peterson in this game. I think you can tell where I'm going here. I do have a lean towards the home underdog, Minnesota, in this spot. The Redskins statistically are good on offense, 5th in the league in total yards per game, but when you watch their games, they're very inconsistent. They've been shut down in a couple of their games this year, especially in the first half of games. Much of their yardage in the beginning of the season was racked up in garbage time of some of these games when they were way behind and defenses sort of backed off and played more of a shell coverage, kept things in front of them. So the Redskins not quite as good as the stats would indicate on offense, and they are every bit as bad as the stats would indicate on defense, as you know if you've seen them play. Now, Minnesota certainly not very good on defense themselves. That is one reason I do have a lean towards the over here, over 49.5. But the bet I like a little more, I think, is Minnesota +1.